We are live. All right, welcome everybody. It is Fired Up Friday one more time. And this is Rick in Studio USA with my man Wayne.
What's up, brother? Let's do this.
What up? Okay, so we've got a massive crew back there that we're kind of doing this show for them, really.
We really are.
Yeah, and so it's good to have an audience because we assume nobody's watching. So this is kind of fun. And in reality, we're just doing the FAFO mode, and we're working the gear. We're learning how to work the gear.
Yeah, I think this is basically just our we should just call this Self-Therapy Friday. That's all this is. It's just therapy for you and I, and everybody else gets to listen in.
Yes, 1,000%. So Wayne gets me to tell him myself. I get free coaching, and the guys get to practice on the gear.
There you go.
Yeah, so that way when the paying customers come in later today, everything's working, everything's good, and then I don't have to worry.
Amen.
Okay, so we have consulted the Oracle, and I told Wayne the topic literally 30 seconds ago whenever I looked it up. And so today, our topic is mindfulness. And the quote is, "The present moment is filled with joy and happiness. If you are attentive, you will see it." And that is Thich Nhat Hanh. And then it says, practice 5 minutes of mindfulness meditation each day. Which that's a big ask for a lot of people. Yeah. So what comes to mind on mindfulness?
The first thing that comes to mind is I remember years ago one of my coaches. He was like a performance coach, right? So it was like mostly mindset and things like that. And he said, "I want you to start meditating." And I was like, I kept asking him all these questions, like, what do I do? How do I do? And he's like, just shut up for 10 minutes. You know what I mean? Like, just shut up for 10 minutes a day, whatever. So I was like, all right, I got this. And I remember I was like, okay, I'm going to meditate. So I set the thing on my alarm, on my phone. I'm like, all right, I got this. And I swear, like, as an alarm was supposed to go off at the end of 10 minutes, I thought 38 and a half minutes had gone by, right? And I'm like, I have been in this thing forever, right? I looked at my phone, it's been like 2.5 minutes or something, right? I thought I'd been in a quiet Zen place for hours. Here's what's interesting. How many or have you ever had this experience? I know I have. Like, you have this brilliant thought, like when you're in the shower, because it's like the one place we shut up during the day, right? And what you realize is, so many people, right? We listen to everybody else, but we never quiet and listen to ourselves ever, right? And most people, I think, are actually afraid of that. Right, I think, right, we get in the car, we turn the radio on. We get home, we turn the TV on, right? Like, there's always something going on, and we never sit at rest. And we're never just there in that moment. You know what I mean?
Yes, and we live in the age of distraction.
100%.
And I will freely admit that YouTube and podcasts, and it has destroyed my attention span. I literally, I'm like a tsetse fly.
Yeah.
And I have become conditioned at 55 to where, like, if it doesn't grab me within the first 30 seconds, I'm out. Or now, do you do this where, like, you'll look at, like, there might be something really cool on YouTube, but it's like 17 minutes. I'm not dicking around with that for 17.
I'm like, exactly. 8 minutes? What are we doing with our lives? So here, what do you think is the impact of this self-induced or self-habit that we've created of ADD? Like, we've created and self-induced ADD. So what's the effect of that?
So I think a lot of times people mistake being busy for actually working and getting stuff done.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So I feel like a lot of times if you're in the eye of the hurricane and it's like, oh man, there's like so much stuff going on. But it's like, if you really stopped and had the ability to be self-aware in the moment, it's like, what are you actually doing? And then if I'm to tell myself, a lot of times a whole lot of nothing. You know?
I used to brag about how many hours I worked. I was like, man, I put in 80 hours this week, 100 hours, whatever it was. And then I had this moment of awareness where it was like, other people got done more than I got done in half the time. In essence, I'm just bragging that it takes me twice as long to get the same stuff done. So I stopped bragging about how many hours I worked, you know what I mean? And I started focusing on, like, the results, right? Hold myself accountable, like, what's the actual result? Because most of what we do, right, they say 80% of what we do only brings 20% of the result. 20% of what we do brings 80% of the result. So we're off mindfulness, but that's a big piece. But here's the thing. And I write this. I was actually, so this morning. This is going to be weird. I walked through a graveyard this morning. But here's why. Every once in a while, I go. This is super odd. You're like, this is our last show with the grave walker, right? But I walk through this graveyard because every once in a while, there's this beautiful graveyard, and I walk through it, and it reminds me, man, life is so short.
Memento mori.
So short. Yes. Right, and then I write this little dash in my hand every once to remind me, like, that's all it is, right? Two dates, right? Birth and death, and this little dash in the middle. And it just reminds me, like, am I living my life? Am I in this moment, or am I just in the trance? And I think so often we're just in the trance, right? We have 80,000 thoughts a day or whatever it is, some huge number. But almost all of them are the exact same we had the day before. We're just in a trance most of the time.
Yes, and the to take it back to the Matrix movie, where I don't know, I was in my late 20s probably when that came out, and it just like hit me. We're like, oh wow, this is so accurate that it's freaky scary.
Yes.
And the fact that there were some in there that were like, you know what, screw this, just put me back in the Matrix where a steak is a steak. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
You know? And I think a lot of us, we volunteer for that. And I was the king of distractions, partly because I had gotten to a place where you check the boxes that were told that, like, well, if you check all these boxes,
check them.
Yeah, you check the boxes, then ... happy.
Right.
And I was at a place where the boxes were checked. It was like, I was like, man, I'd come home every day or I'd go to work every day, and it's like, this sucks. And well, then it really is like, then what?
Yeah.
You know, and this was pre any kind of, I have a history of doing the right thing for the wrong reasons. And so one of the things that I did at one point in time was I chased this gal into the Shambhala Meditation Center.
Oh, there you go.
It used to be on Midway and Alpha. And I ended up doing all 5 levels of meditation training. I became a meditation instructor. So like so we pulled this up, this topic, swear to God, absolutely just random from GPT. So I end up doing all of this stuff where, to take it back to what you were saying about, just sit still for 10 minutes. And then people have the misunderstanding of you're supposed to turn your brain off, which that doesn't happen. The Dalai Lama could not turn his brain off. So that self-imposed ADD, I still do it.
Yeah.
I still have it. And I think the biggest thing is to know that you have it, and then to be able to kind of look at the fact of like, what am I getting out of this?
Right.
You know, because like sometimes I lean into it and it's like, I want something stupid. I want shit blowing up. I want Iron Man punching a robot. I want, and I just want, I love pro wrestling. Like one of my, you know, I don't say guilty pleasures, but one of my, if I had to categorize a guilty pleasure, it would be that, where it's like, I just want to turn my brain off.
Right.
And so do you think that 80,000 thoughts a day? So, and I was actually going to ask you, I saw where you posted about the graveyard earlier, and I was like, that's a weird ask. If I'm like, hey, what are you doing in the graveyard? Like, but I'm glad you brought it up. So then that takes away the weirdness. So, also makes me think of Ryan Holiday and his whole the Stoic thing.
Yes.
So is that where that came from, or?
It came from somewhere. I don't remember exactly where it came from, but it works for me. One of those things that you pick up along the way, and I think that, you know, I was thinking about this a while back. Like, what if I ask you, what state were you in most of the time for the last several days? Was it joy? Was it anxiety? Was it frustration? Was like what was it? And is it a state that you chose, or is it a state that you just kind of fell into?
Oh, that's a good one.
Right.
Okay, so I would say for the past few days, so a bunch of things have lined up.
Yeah.
Where like, oh wow, you know how you like work on something forever and there's like literally no indications that you're even driving in the right direction, let alone like it's going to work. And then every once in a while, you'll pass a road sign and be like, oh shit, I am going west. Okay, cool. All right. So the past few days, so like I had a big conference call yesterday with Europe and Vietnam all at the same time. And this is a big Zoom call for a bunch of back end processes that we desperately need.
Wow.
But it fell out of the sky. They reached out to me.
Yeah.
And so like, it was one of those things where, to be mindful of, I try to stay in the state of let the game come to me.
Yeah.
And just suit up and show up.
Yep.
And try not to get into that way of thinking of, well, unless this happens, it's all going to shit.
Yes.
Because there's no way to plan for any of that, and there's no way to be even remotely in control of having that. So my state for the past few days has been in this sort of like, whoa, like that sort of, I don't want to say gratitude because it wasn't that profound, but it was this kind of shock and awe where like, I do believe the universe rewards effort. So you suit up and you show up.
Yes.
And then as long as you don't put any sort of emotional attachment to the outcome, it usually sorts itself out.
Yeah.
But how about you? So like you do your grave work. How often, first off, how often do you do the graveyard walk?
You know, it's random.
Okay, now is that close by your house?
I mean, you know, there's graveyards everywhere when you start looking for them. It's a little weird. Yeah, they're all over the place.
Well, I'm a genre nerd from way back as far as movies go.
Yeah.
And so like just the beginning of Night of the Living Dead, where they're in the, you know, so it's like, I'm already there. I'm down for that.
Yeah.
So yeah, all right, I'm going to start looking.
Here's what I think is important. I think you have to not to get overly spiritual, but there's a verse in the Bible that says, every morning you need to renew your mind. And you look at other ways, and it's like there's so many teachings, and you need to control your mind. You need to tell your mind what to focus on. You need to be the one that drives that thing. And if you don't, the world will take over, right? If you don't tell your mind what to focus on, it will focus on all the negative things, right? If you're driving down the road, you're paying attention to the cones, the stoplights, the brake light, right? That's what we pay attention to because our mind's going, let's stay safe. So we end up paying attention to all the negative things or all the bad things, right? So in our mind, if we don't choose, it's like Albert Einstein said, you can live in a hostile universe or you can live in a friendly universe. It's 100% up to you. So I think mindfulness is every morning, and I am not perfect at this by any means, but every morning I have to remind myself who I am. Every morning I have to remind myself where my focus is going to go. Every morning I have to remind myself, right? Like if I don't do that, the world's going to try to tell me, and it's not going to go. Like you said, there are companies spending exorbitant amounts of money to try to get your attention because attention is the currency of today. Right?
Yes, sir.
So am I giving attention? So like get ticked off, right? If I'm giving attention to all the ads and the scrolling and all the other stuff, everybody else is getting paid and I'm not getting paid. When I'm giving attention to my priorities, my stuff, my mind, right? So I think it's all about figuring out what state you want to be in, and then what's the practices that work for me that allow me to be in that state more often.
I love it. Well, and like the whole thing of like if it can't be measured,
Right.
it can't really be.
Yes.
Planned. And so what's funny is the whole thing about your mindset and having other people dictate how you feel and where you're at. So Cruz is over there behind the lights and the cameras wearing his Dak Prescott jersey, and I've been busting on him for the last couple of years as far as so many of you have seen the photo on Facebook where I went to the 95 championship NFC title game against the Packers. Full-blown Kiss makeup. I was done up like Paul Stanley in Cowboys colors and everything. I was the ridiculous homer that if the Cowboys lost on Sunday, I had a bad day on Monday.
Yes.
And I look back at that and it's like, what in the hell got me there? And to be emotionally invested in something that has literally nothing to do with my daily life.
Right.
And now the one good thing about today's ADD-infused existence, I cannot sit through an NFL broadcast with 3 hours and commercials and all that. It's just like I got to the place where like I'm not giving anybody 3 hours of my life.
Yes.
In that, like it's exactly what you said. They're programmed. They call it programming for a reason.
Right. Amen.
And you're absolutely right on the whole idea of if it bleeds, it leads. And then humans on the evolutionary side, we are the sum total of all of our ancestors who were freaked out, anxious, overly panicked, cautious.
Yeah.
Somewhat smart or whatever, but it's like the old thing of if you walk past the bushes and and there's movement, it's like okay, well everybody that thought it was a tiger and went the other way, they lived.
Right.
Everybody that didn't care and it turned out to be a tiger, their bloodlines ended. So yes, absolutely. So now, do you have any practices that you kind of come back to on a daily basis?
Yeah. So I think the big thing for me is, and I'll tell you what I intend to do every day. I think the big key here is learn from the past, right? Which means like write down the lessons. Don't like overly reflect on the past. And I know that sounds weird because everyone says learn and reflect on the past, but most people unintentionally reflect, and it's just like this pinball in their mind, right? I sucked yesterday. I should have done better, right? Like but it's just like bing, 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 bing. Like they're not actually intentionally learning. It's just like this guilt trip that's kind of like rolling around, right? So like intentionally learn, like write down the lessons, right? What did I learn? What am I going to improve? So like intentionally learn from yesterday, so you don't live in depression. Right, overly focused on the past, and then plan for the future, which is great, and set goals and things like that. Yet, don't be so focused on the future that you're not in the moment. Right, and they say most people even like they go, oh man, vacation's going to be so great, right? So they spend weeks and weeks getting ready, but then because they're always living in the future, even when they're on vacation, they're not actually enjoying the moment because they're planning for when I get back, all the stuff I got to do. Right, you realize most people never are in the moment that they're in. They're always either living in the past and they're depressed, they're always in the future and they're anxious. Right, so the key is like learn for the past, plan for the future, yet do what it takes to get present in this moment because this is all it is. This is it, and it's usually the moments at least in my life, it's usually the moments between the moments that are the biggest, right? Like, it's not the party, it's not like, it's the moment that my daughter says something cute when we're sitting on the couch, or it's the moments between the moments that really matter. So for me, every morning I write down 3 things I'm grateful for. I write down, where I'm going, what are my goals for the next 90 days, and then my priorities for the day. At the end of the day, I write down, what did I learn? Right, what did I do well, right? And then I learned, wins, and then what am I grateful for?
Okay, that's awesome. And now I will state my intentions. I would love to do that. And so one of the reasons, but I won't. One of the reasons why I love doing this is because when we're live, we literally have no idea what we're going to talk about. We're not, because he's like, well, what are you talking about? I don't know. We're going to look. And so there's something about that where the rest of the world goes away, where all this is just like, whoop, it just distills down into the right here, right now. And it's a lot of fun, and hopefully it doesn't suck too bad. And we are, because I come away charged up and I feel completely present in the here and now, which is difficult, on the best days. Yep. And so take it back to the meditation. So I had these meditation instructors that, it's crazy because they would come in and we would do these things where we do these retreats and it's like a 4-hour sit and it's like you just start woo, woo, woo. I mean, you're like somewhere else. Oh, man. So like there is legitimacy to all of that stuff. And it's like, got to find what resonates with you. But I do appreciate, like, I can look back at that and go like, okay, I totally did that for the wrong reasons. It was really silly. But there was an upside and I still have that with me. And so out of that, I would recommend The Untethered Soul and the books by, I can't think of the guy's name, but The Untethered Soul, and then the follow-ons are just amazing, which kind of gets you in the idea of like, your thoughts are coming regardless. And so like, I kind of look at that guy as the mentor that I wish I would have had like physically in front of me, teaching me how all that stuff. And so like for you, like, what would be somebody that sticks out in that realm? Like for me, a lot of times it's like an AA sponsor or something like that, where it's like kind of behind the curtain and nobody knows about it. So like for you, has there been like a coach or like who coaches the coach or who's your favorite mentor, or just, well, you don't have to name names as the favorite, but give us one of the 4 on Mount Rushmore.
So along the idea of mindfulness, the first thing that comes to mind, because of the conversation we're having, is myself. And I know that sounds a little weird, but like when I shut up and do the things I know I need to do, the journaling, the reflecting, the thinking, right? Like my prayer and meditation, right? If you haven't read the book 2 Chairs, such a good book, right? But literally, I sit there with another empty chair, like it's weird. But like, we underestimate how brilliant we are and how many answers we have and how much we know if we just shut up and trust ourselves. Way too many people are going off everybody else instead of doing that, right? So that's a big part. And then, I was thinking about this yesterday, actually. Dave Jenks was one of my great mentors. And, he helped write The Millionaire Real Estate Agent and several of those. I mean, he impacted the real estate community more. And he was behind the scenes. Most people never knew much about Dave Jenks, right? But I'll tell you what, he, years ago, this is when I knew in my real estate career, and I went to an event. He came to Alaska to go fishing, I think. But he was giving a class, right?
It's a write-off.
Yeah, amen. I was like, why are all these amazing people coming to Alaska? I was like, oh, they want to go fishing. That's why they're here. So, but he did this class, so I got there early. I remember I was so broke the night before. I actually rolled quarters the day before so that night I could go buy a copy of his book and have him sign it. Like that's where we're at, right? So I get there, right? He signs the book, and then that later that evening, I was actually invited to go with a bunch of them were having dinner, and I remember Dave and I were able to have several minutes together. And he was, one thing I loved about him is he was always with you, right? Like when he was with you, he was with you. He wasn't looking at like, what's another opportunity? Who else should I be talking? Like he was there, And I don't remember everything he said, but I remember that he gave me belief in myself. And his time and the moments he spent with me, and then we connected years later, and he was my mentor for many years later. But there was like a 10-year, 15-year gap in the middle, right? And yet I remember like his presence and the fact that he saw something in me I didn't see in myself and got me to kind of tap in and believe in that. And I was like, if I can help other people do that, what an amazing thing. What an amazing thing. And what ticks me off in the world, my mission in the world is what ticks me off is people that don't see their own greatness or know how to access it, tap into it, right? So my belief is I believe that everyone should, right, be able to have that. So my gift is to be able to see people's greatness and then help them see it and give them the gifts and the tools to tap into it.
I love it. And to be mindful of our time, we're going to wind it down. But that is awesome. And that is, to take it all the way back to what we said at the beginning, we're kind of doing this for the guys in the room.
We are.
You know, because it's like, I don't have kids.
They're the real rock stars.
Yes. And it's like to have the dudes here that are young and hungry and that want to be successful, and they suit up and show up. It's like, okay, that's actually 80% is suiting up and showing
Absolutely.
up. And then just doing this every week is a blast, dude.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
What I'm not going to let you off the hook until you tell me what are you doing with your life?
What am I doing with my life?
At the end of the day, what do you want people to say? Like, man, that guy. What is that?
I want it to be where I was given who I used to be. I get things on Facebook like, holy shit, I can't believe you're still alive. So I get that every once in a while, and I have the screenshots to prove it. And then I want it to be where when I finally exit, that I gave 51%.
Yeah.
Because I had a long time of where I wasn't giving shit if I didn't have to.
Yeah.
And so to be able to at least enter into any exchange now and to try to give 51%, that way my side of the street's always clean.
Yeah.
And to go out in a completely different way than I came in, I think that's a pretty good. I'm a huge fan of his story and the the hero's journey and all that stuff. So it's like, as long as I can kind of do what would Joseph Campbell do in that regard. But so that's it for me. It's like I just want to be remembered as who I became versus who I was.
Yes.
And so here we are,
That's
dude.
Beautiful. Thanks for the impact you're making, man.
Oh, thanks, dude. All right, Ricky, take us out.
Ooh.